All right, what's going on, guys? So I got a pretty awesome little feature for you here today. I'm at my buddy John Travis's house, and he has a nursery here, and we are in just like a regular neighborhood. Like, you look around, smaller houses, not very big yards, and I think this is a great example of how, you know, it doesn't matter where you live, you can grow. And you know, not only is he growing here, he has a nursery here. But what's really interesting is John does an interesting technique with grafting. So just made a grafting video when I was at Adam's house last week. Went to a grafting party. You guys are going to be seeing that, or already seen that by the time you've seen this. But what I wanted to point out was that John is another one that was inspired by Adam. Adam has inspired lots of other people to get into these Jaboticabas and taught us so much. So thank you, Adam, for this. And let's go see what John has growing on here in the backyard. But I've recently came to get some interesting stuff from John. John's getting, you know, watermelon Jaboticabas and black velvet Jaboticabas and, you know, all different types of Jaboticabas. The Scarlet's new and exciting one, but this grafting technique is really exciting. Hold tight. Oh, there's the man.
Hello, hello.
Oh, you got the nursery shirt on?
Oh yeah, Morton and Sons.
All right, brother.
Somebody's got to do it.
What's growing on back here? You got
you
a little backyard nursery in the neighborhood?
Little bit of backyard nursery in suburbia, yeah. On the 3/10 of an acre plot, we've got mostly Jaboticaba, but a little bit of Nona's. Got a few bananas, loquats, a few mangoes tucked in back there, but mostly Jaboticaba.
I see you got some real babies too.
You know, yeah. The sons are real. The sons are my sons. I am the Morton and they are the sons, so this is their play equipment. They're inside getting ready to eat dinner, but yeah, the sons are real. They're not just pretend sons that we're using for advertising purposes. Fruiting right now, the Scarlet or Escarlate, it's the same name, it's just depending on how you pronounce it. They've all got fruit down there. There's fruit on the trees, fruit in different stages. These things fruit, this is probably the 6th time this year that they've fruited, and they just don't stop. They pump out fruit all year long. And it's really, if you want a tree that's gonna fruit a lot, fruit heavy, fruit often, that's the one to go with.
So that one fruits a little earlier too. Is that what else is exciting about it?
Right about 3 years. Yeah, right at the 3-year mark.
Multiple times a year and fruits at 3 years.
Yeah,
that's kind of unheard of in the Jaboticaba world.
It's pretty hard to get something that's going to fruit nearly as much or as often or as young. Yeah, in its 3rd year, usually from seed, you're getting fruit out of it. So it's if you're looking to get started and you want to go fast, that's probably the variety to get into.
Ooh. Little mango action.
A little bit of my mangoes in the ground. Yeah, they're coming back. All the varieties of Jaboticaba, Cherry of the Rio.
How many varieties of Jaboticaba would you say you have?
I think I've got 30 plus
30
right
plus?
now.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually I'll pull up. I've got one of my oddball ones is this one. I believe it's a hybrid of a red and a trunca flora. And I noticed it just the other day. It's got a little fruit sitting there on it. So everybody in the Jaboticaba world is pretty excited to see what comes out of that. So we'll see. It's something about this spot in the yard. The last time I had a white Plinia Phatrantha in the exact same spot because I was worried. I was like, I don't know. I'll put it over there and it'll get some shade, and it fruited. So something about this spot in the yard must be magical. So.
All right, John. These are some like really baby trees. What do we got going on here?
So this is a 38 cell, 5-inch deep seed tray. This is what most people who are propagating are using. And what I'm doing is I am micrografting onto these. If you find yourself in one of two positions, one where you've done some grafting, you've used up a scion, and you have these little tiny pieces at the end, they're too small to wrap with a grafting tape, but I found that you can keep them and graft with them as long as you keep them in a humidity dome. As long as you find a way to keep moisture from escaping. Because for years and years I was grafting and I would end up throwing away these tips, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I could make use of them. And I ended up realizing that I could do it if I used this technique. So I've been fine-tuning it over the past couple of years just to try to see what I could do, and I've been doing it on the on the variegated sabara.
What?
Yeah, it's a variegated sabara. It's really beautiful. Grows slow. I was able to get a cutting from a friend of mine on the West Coast. We worked out a trade, and I've been micrografting it last year, and I'm again taking some this year to try and see if I can make the magic happen. So we'll see.
So now that you've developed this micrografting technique,
Sure.
Can you find somebody else doing it?
Other people are aware of it. I mean, I'm happy to have other people do it. It's not a secret. It's regular grafting. It's just on really small rootstocks. And it's, you need to use the humidity dome, and the time of year probably helps a lot. This time of year, we're in fall here in Florida. It's November. So kind of into the cooler season, they'll make it through the cold just fine. I don't think it would work as well in the summer. These domes will cook if you leave them in the domes. They'll cook. So it being this time of year, I think it goes a long way. But yeah, I'd be happy to see other people do it. I'm always happy to see somebody else get into propagation. There's not enough people doing it. I'm busier than I need to be. So yeah, take the baton and run with it, please.
Would you say a good portion of your grafting is done this way now?
Only on my most rare stuff. That's the only time I really need it. So, if I have something, so I was taking a cutting earlier. So this is a cutting from Caipirinha, which is the Dwarf Jaboticaba. It's in the same, it's just like a Sabara, except it's a dwarf. So with something like this, I've got enough budwood cuttings that I can take this and piece this out and make this into 3 or 4 different cuttings, and I'd graft them. And if it was more rare, I'd start going down here, down to the tips, or I'd say, okay, and I'd probably cut off the flushes of new growth, and then cut it back. So if you're in a position where you really want to make the most use of your scions, do it. It's funny, a lot of it really came from, I was working with other people who were grafting, and they had enough budwood that they could take it, but then they were leaving the tips, and I said, can I collect your trimming, like what you're leaving on the ground? And they were gonna throw it away. They said, sure, I don't care. So I'd take those and I'd bring them home, and I'd try the micrografting, and I'd get some takes, and I said, well, if it works and you can get the super rare stuff to propagate, why not? Why leave it out on the table? Why delay the propagation? Until, because a plant this size is going to be another year or two before it's really got a meaty scion that I could take and do anything with. So micrografting is really the fast way around that.
So John, for people watching, let's bring that plant back into frame real quick.
Sure, yeah.
So people get an idea, what's the value of that plant?
This plant is, it goes, the range is kind of everywhere. They sell a lot on eBay, so I'd say for something this size, you're in the $400 range, more or less, maybe more. I've seen small ones go for $200-300. As they get bigger, they're obviously worth more. So if I can graft a few of them, I'm really just happy to get them out there and get them out into the hands of collectors. It's great that there's money involved in it. Don't get me wrong. That part is excellent.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about what we can do to get this plant out into the world a little bit faster.
Because you can grow that in an apartment, you can grow that
up
north.
This is probably this is probably not even a full 3-gallon pot. It's probably just a 2.5 gallon pot. But yeah, it can be grown in almost any conditions. I've fruited a lot of Jaboticaba trees over the years in. I've got one over there when I want to wander off, but it's a 3-gallon red, and it's fruiting. So you can fruit them in a 3-gallon pot. I've seen them fruiting in 1 gallons if you really leave them in place long enough. But yeah, they're good for container culture. If you live in an apartment, you live in a small spot. I got started grafting and doing all this work living in a second floor, and I had a balcony, and it had a bunch of trees, and one tree, a big cocktail tree that I kept grafting onto because I wanted to collect everything, but I didn't have the space for it all. And now I've been able to go back to that tree and take cuttings now that I have more space and make a tree for every variety that I want and more. So we've been going from there. But yeah, that is effectively what I'm doing here.
Nice. So what kind of tools do we have for today's job?
Sure. So I have my my Vesco pruners, the double cut. I I like them a lot. They work really well. I like these better than a bypass, only because when you use a bypass printer, especially on something this small, you end up putting some pressure on one side, and I don't want it to damage it. So the double cuts are really the best tool I've found for it. They're the ones I like the most. I'm sure everyone has their own preferences on tools. I'm not telling you have to do it one way or the other. These are probably more expensive printers than you need if you're just getting started, but I do this a lot, so I like them. So I use these. I also use these little tiny trim scissors to trim up the leaves when I'm going through, as well as my trusty Victorinox Florist knife. I really like that one. I think it's a really good knife. It's good for what I'm doing. People will, again, there's different shapes and sizes of grafting knives. This is just the one that I prefer. It's one I got started on, and they make a really quality knife, so I would recommend them. So I'm gonna come here and, just like you would on any graft, you clip the tree, you take the top off of it, and then you have to get in here and split this right down the middle. So we're gonna do a cleft graft. Let's try and make it so it's a little bit more visible. It's right down the side. The piece that I'm going to use is a little bit smaller than the trunk of this, or than the diameter, so I'm okay with it being down the side. It gives me a little bit better angle to work with. Come here and take my cutting out of this. I've got this piece, so it's pretty small, not a real big significant chunk of it. I'm going to take some of the leaves off and leave some of the leaves on. But all the leaves that I leave on, I'm going to cut back. And the reason we cut the leaves back is to keep it from losing water. So all the leaves are a place where it's gonna lose water, it's gonna dry it out, and to avoid that, we trim it all back to something like this. I've got the split in there, so that part's done. I'm gonna get a little piece of grafting tape ready. If I can find it. The grafting tape I use is buddy tape. I really like it. It works well. There we go. There's where the break is in it.
You don't have the buddy tape necklace?
I don't have the triple F buddy tape necklace. No, it's an effective piece of jewelry. I need to get one of those custom made. So now I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna work on this, and it's very, very delicate because you're working with such a small piece of budwood. It would probably be just as easy to achieve this with a razor, or use a razor blade or something like that. But these are the tools I use. This is what I have on hand and available and sterilized. So I use what I normally use. I don't like to switch it up too much. So that's probably about as good as that's gonna get. I'd like it to maybe get a little bit thinner on one side if I could, but inevitably if you go and you try and cut it again and recut it, you end up with less and less of a piece to use. So I'm gonna wedge this right in here. And then start wrapping it up with the grafting tape. And when they're this small, I've found that it's really not as important that they're quite lined up. There's so much of it is cambium at this point that it seems like a lot of them will take, whether or not they're quite lined up or it's quite as tight as it needs to be. I know when you get into a much bigger tree, the alignment needs to be a lot more precise. But it's just harder to do when you're working in this size. So, you work with what you can and you try your best, and sometimes it works out well and sometimes it doesn't, but so, and we'll leave it right there next to its peers. And I'll leave it there for it's probably gonna sit in this tray for about 2 or 3 months. I'll leave it in there, let it heal up. If it takes and is successful, we'll know it'll be putting out new growth and doing all of that. And we'll leave them, it's in a seed tray, so it's fine to stay in there. We just make sure that we water it. I'll fill the bottom up with water down there. Probably add in some type of fertilizer or something to keep the plants a little bit happier, help them push growth. And then you just keep the humidity up with a dome like this. Just put a dome over it. And there's vents on top, so it's really important when you're doing this to not just one day say, okay, they're good, and then rip the dome off. It's one of those things you kind of have to let them harden off to the outside air. So once we get through the winter time, spring comes around, I'll probably start, you crack the vent open a little bit, you leave a little bit of space. There's vents on either side, so you start venting it, it starts letting the humidity out, and over probably, a 2 or 3 week period, I'd say, you give it time to adjust to the elements, and you slowly open the vents all the way, and then you get to a point where you say, okay, well, it's probably all right, and you pop the lid off. But I do it over the course of about three weeks, just to be on the safe side. You could maybe rip it off and it'd be fine, but I'd rather, given how rare they are, I'd rather just take my time and let it be a process.
Nice. Did I mention I like the hat?
Thanks.
Dude.
Thanks. A buddy of mine gave it to me.
All right, so where can people buy your micrografted rareness, John?
Sure. I a lot of times I'll list things on eBay. There's some Facebook groups where we sell plinias back and forth to each other. I'm there. John Travis Morton is my handle on Facebook. You can reach out to me through Instagram, John Travis. I'm happy to hear from you. Or I do every now and then see clients here in the nursery. We're not open to the public. We are by appointment only because this is my residence. So, I appreciate people being interested, but I don't like unexpected visitors. So, but feel free to reach out. I'm happy to hear from people at any time.
Sweet, bro.
Yeah.
So how long before we'll see the kids out here grafting?
They're observant now. They were watching me graft earlier today. I had them out. They know what's going on. They get the deal. I bring them out and I show them what I'm doing every day. So once we can get the motor skills down and get put knives in their hands, I might have to start by doing the cleft cuts and the trims for them. But letting them place everything. But they're good at it. They're interested. They are very good harvesters. They give me the seeds back, which was a big step in the right direction. They were originally just swallowing the Jaboticaba seeds, so now that they give them back, it's even better. But yeah, we have a good time. They'll be out here soon enough.
I love it, man. Sweet, man. Keep up the awesome work.
Yeah.
Man.
Hey, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it.
We would love that. So much. So thank you, Adam, for this. And let's go see what John has growing on here in the backyard. But I've recently came to get some interesting stuff from John. John's getting, watermelon Jaboticabas and black velvet Jaboticabas and, all different types of Jaboticabas. The Scarlet's the new and exciting one. But this grafting technique is really exciting. Hold tight.